Hi everybody, and welcome back to what will be one of our last videos. We've got two coming up next week, and that's the end. And coming to the end of the year this way, it's kind of, as they say, bittersweet. I mean, on the one hand, this has been as hard on me as on you to do this whole distance learning thing. So part of me is relieved that it's over. I really feel regretful in that I missed out on a lot of wonderful opportunities to be with you and to have some really important discussions. That's kind of sad. I hope I'll get to see many of you in senior year when we come back in the fall, God willing. But I think in many ways, this whole coronavirus experience has helped all of us to appreciate all kinds of things in life that we might otherwise take for granted. And I think part of it for me is that it's really made me appreciate how much I've enjoyed being with you this whole year and what a really fun group of young people you are to talk to and to teach. So I'm really sad to have this distance farewell. I wish I could say goodbye to you in person for the summer. I also wanted to say that I definitely read and appreciated all your questions that you sent in on those forums. I'm sorry I haven't gotten to more of them, but I want you to know that having read them, I've kept them in the back of my mind as I'm thinking about classes and preparing classes. I very much appreciated that in your questions, so many of you said, Father Pilsner, how are you doing during this whole coronavirus thing? So I will answer that. I'll tell you that I've been doing okay. I am very safe here, very comfortable here. I've been very busy trying to keep up with everything I need to for the sake of teaching. I will say, though, it has been pretty lonely. I mean, I don't know if you can imagine what it's like living in this building when none of you were here. In the building, it's so empty, and at times it's like a ghost town. I mean, it's like I'm the only person walking around. I mean, all right, well, I'm not exactly going crazy or anything. Here it comes. 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 Woo! Great job, everybody. Great job. Teamwork. Teamwork. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe just a little bit crazy. But apart from that, everything's good. So here's today's video on commandments 7, 8, and 10. And I'll see you next time. Today's lesson will be on property and truth commandments 7, 8, and 10. Let's begin with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Make us worthy, Lord, to serve our fellow man throughout the world who live and die in poverty and hunger. Give them through our hands this day their daily bread, and by our understanding love give peace and joy. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So today we are covering commandments 7, 8, and 10. 7 and 10 concern property. You shall not steal, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods. Commandment number 8 concerns truth in language. You shall not bear false witness. We'll do a lot of definitions today. Then next week, I'm going to tie up some loose ends on the matters concerning human sexuality, and then I will give you all the review material that you need for your final exam. Here's a definition of theft: taking someone else's property against his or her will. There are many different ways to steal things. One way is robbery, simply taking it. Another is to ask someone to borrow something, and then you have it in your possession, but you have no intention to return it. Identity theft is a very serious and scary thing these days. A person could steal your credit card information. Sometimes they could even do things like claim the deed to your house and then start borrowing money off of your house. It gets really crazy. Here's something that quite sadly people do a lot. So if there's a wedding or a prom, people might buy an expensive item of clothing, maybe a tie clip, a handkerchief, a purse, a pair of shoes, and they fully intend to use this or to wear this to the special event and then to come back and return it and say, oh, it didn't fit, or I didn't like it, or something else, so that they can get their money back. That is a form of stealing, because once a person has used these items, especially if it's a clothing item, the store cannot sell it at the regular price. They have to discount it and lose money on that. So whatever amount of money that the store is going to lose on the item, it's really as if the person who had this plan and who did this, it's as if they stole it. You could be guilty of a type of theft if you find something of great value and you decide to keep it instead of trying to make an honest effort to give it back to the person who lost it. Also, taking and using for yourself something that is common property of a larger enterprise. So, for example, if there's a company car and you use it a lot for your own personal business, thus requiring the company to eventually pay for repairs to that car. There would be looting, and that would be wrong. I think everyone pretty well understands why. Tax evasion means doing illegal things to avoid paying your just taxes. Shoddy work or time theft are forms of stealing. So if you're paid to work 5 hours or 8 hours on a particular day and nobody's looking, so you leave an hour or two early, well, that's a type of theft because you're paid to work, let's say, 8 hours, and so you owe it to your employer to work that amount of time. Check or invoice forgery, expense accounts padding, waste. There's other kinds of things that concern business. Other kinds of things would not necessarily be stealing per se, but would still be wrong in terms of abusing property or being irresponsible regarding property. So, for example, vandalism, destroying someone's property to an extent that that person is going to have to pay money to fix it or repair it or replace it. Wastefulness would be destroying or squandering property so that it cannot be used. Trafficking means selling stolen goods, so that involves a person in the stealing process, if you would. Usury has to do with charging unfair interest rates, also called loan sharking. So that's a matter of taking advantage of a person's situation in order to get more money out of them through unfair interest rates than they are able to afford or than is justified. Excessive gambling could be a problem. The Catholic Church per se does not have a problem with gambling itself. It's all a matter of whether a person is going to do it responsibly. So if a person is gambling away their rent money, that's a serious problem. If a person, however, has what we call disposable income, money they might use on a meal or they might use for some other kind of recreation, but the recreation they prefer is gambling, well, then that would not be a problem. Business fraud would be maybe closer to stealing. That means breaking contracts, engaging in deceptive business practices that truly could be depriving people of money that they invest. Sometimes cheating or lying on official forms could be a type of stealing if the person gains money from the lying. So if someone faked that they had a college degree when they applied for a job at a college and they did this to get a higher salary, that would be, in addition to lying, a type of stealing. The word coveting means desiring to possess beyond the limits of reason. So, as you see here, it is a pretty well established principle, thanks again to St. Thomas Aquinas, that some amount of earthly possessions are necessary to have a decent and happy life and to be spared the burden of having to struggle to survive. However, after that amount of goods are obtained, then having more things are not going to substantially increase happiness. So if you're talking about a person's investment in their time and effort, at a certain point, a person should realize that they have enough money to live securely and comfortably, and that their future happiness will not consist in simply increasing their bank account, but rather in investing themselves in the most meaningful relationships in their lives. The Catechism says this in number 2535. It says, the sensitive appetite leads us to desire pleasant things we do not have. That is, the desire to eat when we are hungry or warm ourselves when we are cold. So it's essentially saying there that it's natural to want the things that you need and to live in a way that is respectable and decent. Then it goes on to say these desires are good in themselves, but they exceed the limits of reason and drive us to covet unjustly what is not ours and belongs to another or is owed to him. So it becomes a problem when a person is desiring what belongs to someone else and seeking, to take it no matter what, or to be just desiring earthly goods beyond what is really reasonable to have. So the idea of coveting would include this: greed, which is the desire to amass earthly goods without limit; avarice, a passion for riches and their attendant power. So once again, it's not wrong to want to be prosperous and to work to be prosperous, especially if you understand that your wealth is something that God has given you and entrusted to you so that you could do as much good as possible with that wealth. A lot of these questions you'll deal with in greater detail when you study social justice in senior year. Let's see, what else does it say? It also forbids the desire to commit injustice by harming our neighbor in his temporal goods. Pretty self-evident. Number 2539 is about envy. Envy is a capital sin. It refers to the sadness at the sight of another's goods and the immoderate desire to acquire them for oneself, even unjustly. When it wishes grave harm to a neighbor, it is mortal sin. So, yes, to envy is a very dangerous thing. It is very toxic to the person's soul. Rather than have a sense of gratitude and generosity and hopefulness, envy just focuses on what other people have, with the thought of, oh, they have it and I don't. And then that leads to a kind of anger that's just not healthy. So I know there's a lot of talk about inequality and privilege, and there's some real issues there that are important to discuss. But I think people generally need to be careful. Sometimes there's a fine line between being angry over inequality and privilege versus envy. You don't want to ever cross that line into envy, because, like I said, it is really toxic for the person's soul. Commandment number 8 is, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So this commandment presupposes a courtroom type decision where someone is testifying in court and is telling lies in order to, I guess, gain some advantage to themselves or to hurt another person. It's telling us that lying is very, very bad. And you think it must be, because the devil himself is called what? The father of lies. And Jesus calls him a liar and a murderer from the beginning. When Jesus tells people to be honest in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, don't play games with the truth. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Anything else is from the evil one. So you see, lies are associated with the devil. So they're very evil. And so it's important to really value the truth and have the courage to speak the truth and to understand the evil that can come about through lying. A lot of people have been seriously hurt by lies. Lies at times have caused all kinds of trouble. You know, when you think about it, people, I mean, as human beings, we depend upon each other to tell the truth. How would people know what's in our minds and hearts if we don't tell the truth? How would we know what our intentions are regarding a relationship or a vow if we do not tell the truth in our speech? So telling the truth is hugely important, and lying is very, very evil. So let's get to some specifics. Perjury means false witness under oath, again, assuming a courtroom type situation. Rash judgment has to do with assuming without adequate evidence the moral fault of another. So it's like thinking the worst of another person without really good reasons to do so. It's very unjust and very unfair to that person to judge them in that way. This is what Jesus was talking about when he said, "Do not judge, and you shall not be judged." Now, these next two words I want you to understand very, very well. Oh my goodness, they're in yellow. Wonder what that means. Detraction, revealing a person's faults and failings to someone who did not previously know them and who had no right or need to know them. So notice, first of all, we're talking about faults and failings that are true. Next, we're talking about somebody who wants to hurt someone and have other people look at them in a bad way. So you see, this person, in order to accomplish that goal, says things about the person who's their target that are true, but reflect very badly on the person. So, for example, if let's say you knew someone who worked at a police station and they saw someone from your school be arrested over the weekend, and this person, you don't like them, so when Monday comes, you tell everybody that this person was arrested. Yes, it was true they were arrested, but you want everybody to know that, so they will look at this person with the same negative glance, if you would, that you look at them. You see, it's really a form of gossip, right? Gossip. Although you're not really so much spreading a rumor, you're spreading something that is true, but the purpose is to get other people to look at somebody the same negative way that you do. And it's so, as you see, it is a sin. You're hurting that person's reputation by just depriving them of the respect that people would normally give a person if they didn't know other things about them. Calumny is different because it is a lie. So whereas detraction means spreading around something that is true but negative about a person to change people's opinions about this person, calumny means lying about the person so that you damage their reputation and other people take a negative view of them. So, for example, if someone said that a certain girl had had an abortion, and it's wrong, it's a lie, she didn't, but in order to hurt or harm this young lady, people start spreading that rumor, which they know is a lie. That is called calumny. So notice the difference. Detraction has to do with spreading some negative stuff, which happens to be true. Calumny is spreading some negative stuff, which is a lie. Of course, then there is just simply outright lying. Here's a good definition: to speak or act against the truth in order to lead someone into error. So that's speaking a falsehood with the intention of deceiving. Is a lie a mortal sin or a venial sin? Sometimes people they assume that it's mortal sin because it's part of the Ten Commandments, but within lying, there can be degrees. So if it's a really serious lie concerning these things you see here, the nature of the truth it deforms, the circumstances, intentions, the harm suffered, it could be a mortal sin, but it could also be a venial sin if it is something not so serious in nature. Here's some other forms of lying: boasting and bragging. That's when you exaggerate to make yourself look good. Duplicity, which means being deceptive or misleading, being two-faced. So you're nice to a person to their face, and then you talk down about them or say unkind things about them behind their back. Wow, good thing we don't have those kinds of people at Spellman. That's all I can say. And then there's dissimulation, hiding something by pretense or pretending. So, in a similar type of example, you smile at someone, you laugh at their jokes, you take an interest in their life. In other words, you act like you're their friend, but you don't really want to be their friend. You see, you're not telling the person in words, "Oh, I am your friend. I want to be your friend." But no, you do it through these other means, right? You're being fake about how you approach the person, etc. Hypocrisy means a person who in public takes on the reputation of someone who is deeply concerned about being godly, being righteous, but privately they cut corners for themselves and do wrong things that are hidden from public view. Well, here's a couple of really relevant issues, right? Plagiarism. Yes, that's what happens when students like write something in a paper and it was copied from some other source and they put it there without any kind of a footnote. So essentially, if you present that to a teacher, you're saying, "Oh, this is what I wrote," when in fact, no, you didn't write it, somebody else wrote it, and you copied it into your paper without telling anybody. Yes, that is a form of lying, and again, we should be careful, be very careful about this. Of course, you get in trouble at Spellman for this. Wait till you get to college. If you do this stuff in college, you could seriously get suspended or kicked out. Colleges are very much on top of this. They are very careful to catch this because it's like the value of their degree is at stake. Cheating on exams, which means again a type of lying because you hand in that exam. Implicit in doing so is saying this represents my answers and my knowledge. But if it does not, then that is a type of deception. And again, Jesus says, let your yes mean yes, your no mean no, anything else is from the evil one. If you're playing around with lying or cheating, you are kind of moving into the devil's territory where you do not want to be. All right, as you see here, the following are gravely wrong if done for the purpose of encouraging or confirming someone else in doing grave evil, and they're venial sins if done simply to be agreeable, avoid trouble, meet a need, or obtain legitimate advantages. So flattery means, of course, giving compliments for the sake of gaining a favor. Adulation, excessive admiration to someone. Complacence is interesting. That's when you're giving someone, as they say, like an attaboy, right? You're encouraging them, so it like empowers them to carry out their wishes, like the people who just like go along and applaud something that's wrongful. So let's say somebody is a thief and every night they're stealing something and you're saying, "Oh wow, man, that is so cool. You're so smart. I can't believe you got away with that." Right? Well, by those words of complacence, by praising the person, it's like encouraging them, and it is a form of you could say cooperation in the evil that they're doing. Other sins would be irony, which is simply making fun of someone in a way that is hurtful. Breaking promises. I think that's self-explanatory. Breaking confidentiality is important. If someone asks you to keep something secret, to keep it confidential, that you respect that and you do that. Now, there is an important thing to be said here regarding keeping confidentiality if a person tells you something that puts somebody else or even themselves in serious danger. If that happens, if someone says to you, please keep this secret, and then they tell you something, and keeping that secret would put another person in harm's way, and the person who told you this is not willing to give this information or share it with the appropriate party who can help and protect this person, then you have the obligation to break confidentiality. So if a friend were saying to you, for example, can you keep this secret? And you agree to, and they say, well, I'm going to do something to hurt myself. If you cannot persuade that person to get help, then it's not just that you're allowed to break confidentiality, you must break confidentiality for the sake of that person. Then there's failure in discretion, quite simply, TMI. It's not like you're maliciously trying to hurt someone's reputation, but you're being really, as they say, indiscreet or careless about the kinds of information that you're sharing. And so you might wind up, saying things that really other people don't have any business knowing, or something that they really don't need to know. And I'm sure you can think of any number of examples that involve TMI. Then there's reparation. Reparation simply means fixing things. If you stole something and you go to confession, you receive forgiveness, but there still remains satisfaction. Remember, that's one of the acts of the penitent. You have to somehow make up for it. And there's various ways that people will do that. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got to, let's say, go to the person you stole from and say, I stole this. Although maybe that's what your conscience tells you that you need to do. Sometimes people can make reparation secretly. Sometimes if they cannot make reparation, then they'll do something over a longer period of time to make it up, maybe secretly. So, for example, if someone stole something and then, let's say they used it, let's say someone stole a sweater and wore it, and they could never give it back to the store because they wouldn't be able to sell it or anything. The person could make up for it by donating to the poor an amount of money that would be of equal value to that sweater and make reparation that way. If you hurt somebody's good name, you must do something to restore it. If in other words, you practiced calumny, if you spread lies about a person that hurts this person's reputation, well, you owe it to them to talk to the people that you lied to and fix the record and admit, well, what I said was a lie. It's not true. You really owe it to the person because it's important for everybody to have a good reputation. And let's see, finally, the more serious the damage, the more serious the obligation to make some kind of reparation. So this covers those commandments, and now you can go ahead and do the homework that's attached to this video.